Well, it's been 2 years since New World came out, and the game has changed a lot since then. At its core, I think New World is still that same game that it felt like when I started playing it, but the changes that Amazon has made, for the most part, have made the game a lot more enjoyable to play. So, I wanted to make a video talking about New World in 2024, and my thoughts on the game and how it's progressed and whether it's worth your time right now. I know it might be a little bit on the early side to make a video like this, but well, the new patch is already on the PTR, so we already know what it's going to look like. We know what the rest of the year is going to look like, so I hope you're ready for my completely unbiased opinion on whether New World is worth it right now. I hope you guys enjoy a little bit of the gameplay in the background. I am a PvP player, so for the sake of you guys knowing where my opinion is coming from, I think that's worth mentioning as well. So let's start by talking about this most recent expansion. They added a new zone, we had a max level increase for your character level, your trade skills, but most importantly, they removed expertise and completely reworked how looting works in this game. That's right, that super annoying grind of leveling up your expertise after you hit max level and the amount of power that you lose out on not just being able to wear the highest level gear right away. That's all gone, and on top of it, we have a loot bias system, so if you're wearing light armor and using a musket and rapier like I am in the gameplay here, when I get drops even from the kills in PvP, they will have a much higher chance of being light armor pieces, muskets, or rapiers, and they will be either dex or intel for the most part because that's how my character is built. This is huge to me because it just adds so much more value to when you go out and actually loot things. And honestly, prior to this update, it felt like you had to put in way too much effort to get something like a best in slot piece of gear, where now you have a chance of rolling it if you're just out and about doing whatever you want. So yeah, the reward is definitely there that wasn't there before. They also took the RNG out of crafting. You can still craft stuff and have RNG in it, but we at least have the option now to guarantee all 3 perks, guarantee the attribute that we want, and everything 700 gear score on a piece of gear. Now, it's really expensive to do this, but it's nice for someone like me who plays an Iron Man to have access to this kind of an option and be able to ensure that I can get a BIS piece. Now, the influx of all this guaranteed crafted gear and the new loot that you can get meant that there was a big crash in the value of gear, and I don't think that's a bad thing either because it just allows people to have so many more builds that they can try, so much more access to stuff that they maybe didn't have access to before, and gets rid of those incredibly expensive BIS items that people feel like they could never obtain. Artifacts were also a really good addition to the game. These unique items have perks that no other item can have, and they open up tons of different builds and playstyles that you didn't really have options to play before. And the fact that Amazon has so many different ways they can go with these, they seem to be getting pretty creative with them on the PTR as well, so patch to patch, I hope they keep adding more artifacts, and we get to see more and more cool builds and playstyles emerge from them. Speaking of builds and playstyles, let's talk about balance. Now, I hope I don't get roasted too hard for saying this, but balance feels pretty decent right now. Honestly, in PvP, I see and fight everything, and I myself like to play a bunch of different weapons, and there are combos that I thought, oh, this might not be so great because X weapon isn't considered the best right now, but then the combo was great, and X weapon was a lot better than I guess people have made it out to be. So in general, when it comes to balance in these kinds of games, I think the thing you have to be wary of is people tend to be very biased and people tend to have an opinion on balance based on their lack of information or knowledge about balance. I don't mean this in a mean way, but it'll come out mean anyway. If they don't know what they're talking about, they probably won't have a great opinion on balance in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, balance is by no means perfect, and there are definitely different playstyles that take much different levels of effort to be successful on, but the key thing for me is that everything feels viable. There is no weapon that I think is so underpowered that you just can't use it or it doesn't stand a chance. Everything is great in a certain situation, and yeah, we got some rock, paper, scissors in a game like this too. I think that's natural, especially with how many different weapons and combat styles there are in this game. The big negative for me balance-wise is when something is bugged or they overlooked it and it's not working the way they want it to work. This is something that I don't think is going to stay in the game long term, and Amazon will likely patch out, but they do have a big impact on balance, especially in stuff like PvP. When people find something nice and broken, they gonna abuse it. It is an MMO, and that is how it has always been. And, well, bugs in general are unfortunately also a reality of an MMO like this. I don't know why, but every MMO that I've played that has 3D combat, we've got bugs in them, and sometimes it's game breaking, sometimes it's not a big deal. Currently, at this moment, I can't use my favorite skill on my favorite weapon, which makes me very sad. But I think it's worth mentioning that Amazon is doing a better job now than they did at launch when dealing with these bugs. So, yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, and obviously we're gonna see bugs every now and then. Hopefully nothing too game-breaking makes it through. This past year has been pretty decent, but here I am, sad that I can't use my favorite weapon. So I'll let you guys make up your own mind on that. Now, let's talk about endgame, starting with PvP, which I think for New World being kind of a PvP-focused MMO, is a lot of endgame for quite a few players. The addition of influence races is massive. It created these huge open world PvP brawls that we didn't really have before. Most importantly, you don't need to be in a company or sign up for a war roster or anything like that in order to partake in them. You can just run to wherever the race is happening and get that crazy open world PvP. They are unfortunately timed events, so it's only during some prime time hours of the day that you can actually do these. But in my opinion, this was a great addition to PvP content because it created something that we just didn't have before. The rewards you get from PvP are a lot better than they were at launch. I'm pretty sure they were just trash at launch, but now you can actually get best in slot items from doing PvP. So in general, we have more PvP options and they are more rewarding than they used to be. Now, I don't do a ton of dungeons or anything like that, but PvE-wise, I do really like that we have a lot more overland content than we used to with the addition of the new zones. And artifacts dropping from certain bosses and stuff like that creates kind of niche farms for bosses that didn't really exist that much either. And like I said earlier, loot in general is just much more rewarding than it used to be. So for me and the PvE content that I've been playing, I found that it's been more enjoyable because I'm actually getting stuff that I want when I do it. Skilling is also a huge part of PvE in New World 2, with a ton of different skills to level up, and a lot of different benefits and ways to make money through skilling as well. The big downside I see with skilling, though, is bots. And again, this is an MMO. You're always going to have bots and things like MMOs, but it makes it not fun to collect resources on some of the more full servers that have a ton of bots running around. In general, though, I would, of course, love to see more overland content. I would love to see more zones. I feel like New World feels less empty than it used to, but it's still not at that big scale that we want to see for an MMO. Content-wise, I think 1 or 2 more years and it'll start to feel a lot more full. So, there you go, guys. My completely unbiased thoughts on New World. You should buy it right now. Just kidding. Make an educated decision for yourself, because you are your own person, and really, I'm just someone on the internet who has an opinion. And that's all it is. Just an opinion. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope I was able to answer at least one question you had about the game. You can check out all my stuff scrolling across the screen there, and of course, send in those clips for the top 5 fights. A big thank you to our sponsor, ExpressVPN, and a huge thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon for supporting the show. I'm looking forward to 2024. Let's see what New World gets. Have a good one, guys, and I'll see you next time.